So today we're going to specifically talk about documents. This is again kind of a light. I can't do too deep a dives, but I know request of documents is one of those painful things that we get. And if I can help you avoid them or know when to ignore it, when not to ignore it, it will just make your life better and it'll help your clients. So we're going to talk about documents. There's other topics coming up in the future. Let me pull up that list. I got to let some more people in. We are going to talk about next week is how to handle income document input, or not documents, how to handle the income when people are married on paper and separated in reality. So basically somebody who's getting divorced. Or maybe they're not getting divorced. Maybe they got separated 20 years ago. They're just not gonna, but they're still on paper married. We're going to talk about that. Health Sherpa versus Insura. That's my guest speaker coming. I'm really excited. So those are two different enrollment platforms. I don't think there is a one size fits all. I think one might have a little good of this and one might have a little good of that, and maybe you can use both. One of the exciting things, if you have an administrator who works for you or tries to help things, by having an account at both of these two enrollment platforms, you can be in one enrollment platform, they can be in the other, and can be gathering that information. So, Health Sherpa had to lock down, only one person can be logged in at a time and all that stuff. This will make administration easier. So there's things like that. So I'm excited to have the guest speaker in 2 weeks talking about those two different types of enrollment platforms, because I'm not a specialist on, I know Sherpa, and then we're going to talk about entering kids. Entering kids can always be tricky if they're in college or they're divorced, they live with me, but the father claims them, that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that. So that's just the rest of June. That's some of the stuff that's coming up. And then we'll talk about July and August. I got all kinds of stuff and ideas. So again, if you have an idea, something that you really want to know, that maybe you're, hey, I'm running into this continually, it's not like the one-off things, shoot me an email. I want to answer questions. If you have that question, I can tell you right now, there's other people that also have that question. So there's no such thing as this question is too dumb, or, oh, everybody probably knows it but me. I see that a lot. Hey, I'm new at this. And I can tell you there's agents who've been doing this for 4 years that will still go, I'm new at this. It's still such a baby thing. So we're going to talk about income documents. I'm going to give you what I call the magic question. This is seriously, when I discovered this in I think it started showing up in 2014. I was so excited. I started calling it the magic question. So if you have done enough of these things, applications, you get to the end and it says, send us proof of your income. And you're like, oh no. And they have 3 months. It's 3 months from the date that you hit the submit button. Now, I don't know if you know this, you can actually keep re-updating the application and it just pushes it out for another 3 months. Now, I don't recommend this. There are situations that happens. I discovered this when I had a gentleman who was going to collect unemployment. He just hadn't yet, and he knew what the calculation was and what his income was going to be. So we estimated a whole year in advance, right? Whatever it was going to be. And I would call him at about 2.5 months going, do you have that documents? I need to submit it. And he goes, oh, I haven't applied yet. Okay. And then I do it again. And then he'd go, oh, I haven't applied yet. So I actually pushed his application out for an entire year, 12 months, up to the last 3 months. So the system, I think sometimes you guys need to remember, this is a really stupid system. We're so used to smart. I mean, our phones are so intuitive. We have systems that are kind of anticipating. It's not a smart system. I'm not saying that won't change, because I think it will, but there's still, the government, if you take Medicare an example, they make a rule, and then instead of changing a rule down here, they just keep adding on top of it. So some of the stuff that makes no sense on Medicare is because it made sense, 50 years ago, then they just added something. They didn't adjust old rules. They just kind of keep adding. So this may never change, but hey, this is how it is right now. It's not a smart system. It's really, really dumb. So you can push that income out. Number 2, do not have them submit their own paperwork. I know you're like, oh, it's extra work for you, but It's actually extra work. If you have them submit paperwork that is incorrect, and then they get denied, and then they're like, we don't have the right paperwork, and then they panic, and then they lose their coverage because they didn't submit it correctly. I would rather get it. I see what it looks like. Often somebody tells me what their social security is and their pension. Okay, I push that in. Then they hand me the paperwork and it's completely off. They underestimated. Maybe they were telling you what was showing up in their bank, but not which is the post-tax. And you have to put in pre-tax. So I like seeing that documents. And then I can go, oh, you know what? You gave me your documents. Your income's actually off by 5,000. I'm going to go in there and update it. This is what it looks like. And then you won't have to pay tax back. And I don't know if I've ever had anybody go, oh, no, don't do that. They're, oh, okay, thanks. Because they were estimating what their social security was. So go ahead, always ask them to give you the documents. It's going to make you smarter. It's going to make them trust you. And it's going to save you on the back end. You're going to save so much more time if you get the paperwork. You can actually verify that the information that was put in the application is correct. Then you can submit it. You can upload it in Health Sherpa. You can see when it's been looked at, when it's been done, and then you actually have control. You also then are making sure the correct information is being sent. So it's a little bit tedious, but after a while, it's not so much. And then here's the third. I'm going to do screen share. Here's my magic question. When you see this, it says, well, tell us why the income you just entered seems lower and sometimes says higher than what our records show from the past 2 years for whoever. It's going to have a name. Always select number 2. Always. It doesn't matter why. Ironically, when household members have changed, they don't ask this question. If you say my income fluctuates due to self-employment, you're going to have to submit paperwork. If you say reason not above and you give some long, wonderful explanation about why your income is different, you're going to have to submit documents. If you click this second button, my income will be lower due to a change in job, reasons such as, it will not request documents. That's the best thing. That's why it's the magic question. It magically takes away that request for income documents away. Ta-da! I'm so excited. When I found this, I'm like, it's the magic question. I'm telling the agent I worked with, it's a magic question. The agents I hire now in my agency, I'm like, it's the magic question because it will save you so much time. If you go in there and click this button, it will not ask for proof of documentation. You don't have to show a job. I think the reasoning behind those income document requests is really because they want to make sure you realize, Joe Blow is entering their information that you just put in a significantly different number than the last tax return we had. So when you are entering, if you make sure you understand how this works. So I'm in the fall of 2022. I'm entering the income for 23, right? I'm guessing what I'm going to make a year in advance. The number you put in is compared to 2021. It's 2 years behind. It's the most recent tax document. So it's not even 22. It's because we haven't even filed those taxes yet. It's going to be 2 years in the past. Well, if you got a retiree coming in, of course their income's different. If you had somebody who's divorced, of course it's different. If you had a high school student that's now making money and is not a part of the he's not a dependent anymore. So that is the one that if you it's just going, yeah, my income's different. You push this button and the system goes, okay, you realized you put in a different income, you're good to go. And it doesn't ask for proof of documents. We've actually had to go in and update somebody's application where it was requesting that, and I will do it and I will see that button and I will push it, where previously the client had put in reason not listed above and entered some long explanation. Yeah, nobody's looking at that. It's a system. It's not smart. Just say my income is lower. Any questions on that magic question? So you is Brian's asking, how do you push those documents off? So you just go in there, and if this is my other trick, every time I update an application, no matter why I'm updating it, I say now this is not a new person. This is somebody already in the system. They already have insurance. When you go in to update their application for any reason, whether to push it out, whether to date their income, take somebody off because they're on Medicare, At the end of the application, it says, is this person, Joe Blow, are they losing coverage? Yes. You just say yes. Not a smart system. And then you can say they're losing it at the end of the month that you're working on. So if it's June, I would just say June 30th. That pushes everything you just did for a July 1st start. If you're removing somebody off the application, if you're changing the income so that it does do correctly for July 1st. So I'm in the habit of always doing that. So if you go in and need to push somebody's request of documents off, if you say they're losing coverage June 30th, the system just gives them another 3 months to prove it. There are some people who will push in a buck or two. They'll change the income by $1 or $2. You can do that too. And it just gives you another 3 months. So it's really easy. The system isn't going to say, wait a minute, you have insurance on the marketplace and you just said it's ending. It's not smart. It's really not. Now, we've been spoiled for the last 2 years where if you say coverage is ending, it just says welcome aboard. There's no proof of income ending. It doesn't show any, they're not asking for that. It's going to come back, people, be prepared, especially after this big push of Medicaid rollback. But right now, it's not asking for that. When it does ask for that, it still doesn't, when somebody's currently in the system and you say they're losing coverage, it doesn't ask for proof of anything. It's not a smart system. And somehow when you're in the system, you can just do that. And yes, it will give you an SEP. They'll get a document that says, hey, you have an SEP, you can pick a plan. We just tell our clients, hey, I'm going in, you asked me to update this. Here's what you're going to see the letters from the marketplace and the emails. That was me. So, make sure you are documenting that by email, by phone call, recorded phone call, because we're going to start having to have proof that they've given us permission to talk to their, to go in there and do their application. So I always do an email. All right, this is what I did. All these new emails you just got from healthcare.gov, that was me. Everything you asked me to do is set. And there's your proof. I sync them to our CRM. I never delete things. I mean, I have a delete folder, but I don't ever empty it because I have proof that they asked me either by email or I emailed them that I did it. So it's really easy. It is really, really easy. Now, I know Sharon is asking, how do you recommend handling someone on Medicare and spouses on the application? There are 2 ways of doing it. You can do it on the last day of the month. That was traditionally how I did it. If you did it beforehand, it caused lots and lots of problems. It would end the person the day you did it. If you call the marketplace, they will tell you, you call us on the last day of the month. Since, I don't know, for the last couple of years, I go in anytime in the month and I just say that the person who's staying on the plan is losing coverage at the end of the month. And then it just moves everything to July 1st. Now, other people say, oh, it's not worth the risk because I don't want to have my client lose their coverage before Medicare. That's on you. I understand because I've done that. I would risk it. I would, the marketplace said we fixed this. I'd go in there and it wasn't fixed. And like, dang it, this person just lost coverage 15 days before the end of the month. But if that happened and they had a medical expense and they needed it, it would be turned back on. So it could be fixed. And some carriers, you got to know your carriers, understand that that's a problem and they don't actually terminate covered people turning 65 at the, the 30th of the month when there's 31 days or the 25th. So that's how I do it. I just say they're losing coverage at the end of the month and it just kicks it out to the next month. So that's one of the documents. The other one that you can push this one out for 3 months. The other documents that you can't push out is VA coverage and Medicare coverage. If you are in the application and you get to the end and it says send us proof of your VA coverage, I can tell you right now, they have VA coverage 99% of the time. And they probably have full VA coverage 99% of the time. The interesting thing is the VA will not write a letter when they don't have coverage. Again, I had a client, he ended up in a nursing home and he had VA coverage. And the VA said, no, you don't. The marketplace said, yes, you do. And the VA is like, no, you don't. And they absolutely would not give him a letter stating it. I think it's the government. Nobody wanted to be held responsible for giving him a letterhead that said you don't have VA coverage. So for 2 years before his Medicare disability kicked in, so he was on disability, he had 2 years to get through before Medicare would kick in. I actually pushed his application out every 3 months for 2 years. So I could push it out because somewhere he probably had VA coverage, but nobody in the VA could find that he had coverage. So somewhere in some system it said he did, but he didn't. So you can push that out, but don't until you make them do their due diligence, go to the VA, confirm whether they have coverage. Maybe they only have prescription coverage. Okay, that's a different type of thing. They can go on the marketplace. You can tell them to ask for a letter and they're probably not going to get it. So you can push it out. He did it for 2 years. There was no tax ramifications for it because I think they couldn't prove that he had it. So don't push it out unless they tell you, I went there, make them go get that information. The other thing is Medicare. If it says they're on Medicare, they have it. Probably what they have is Part A. Unfortunately, with the system, if you have Part A, you can't, and not Part B, you can't get on the marketplace. You usually will run into this where somebody had disability, Medicare disability, and then they got off Medicare disability. So we're talking somebody younger. Maybe they had cancer, they got on it, they got better, and now they're full-time working, and they said, hey, I don't need Medicare disability. Unbeknown to them, and most of you, and certainly me until this happened to me, Medicare doesn't turn off Part A. The person says, I no longer need Medicare, I'm not disabled anymore. They turn off Part B, but they don't turn off Part A. So now a client's sitting in your office, you run that application and they have no idea they're on Medicare, and it pops that up and says, send us proof of Medicare coverage. Guess what? They have it. They probably only have Part A. And I've had 3 people who had to fight with Medicare to get them to turn off Part A. Because they're like, I'm not disabled anymore. I don't need Medicare and I need health insurance and I don't have it through my job. I need to get this. So it can take a while. I kept pushing it out, while they were working on it. And then once I got the letter showing that it ended, then I submitted it. So you can keep pushing that one out every 3 months. You can go in there. So I set a reminder and we go, hey, we gotten anything new? Any documents? Nope, still working on it. I'm fighting with them to get it turned off. All right, I push it out. So those are VA and Medicare. You can push them out, but don't just do it. Don't do it unless there's a reason, unless they're telling you they're working on it and stuff like that. In the very beginning, I think it was 2014, we had that issue where one woman was qualified. She's a deaf woman who qualified for disability, but had said, I didn't want it way back when. But she still was eligible for it. So she had to take the Medicare. But we were able to keep her on the marketplace until it was turned on. So just keep that in mind. I will, at the end, or actually in the email, when I send this out to everybody, I will also send you that income document. I know a couple people, Lori, have asked for it. I've got some other ones that I submit. It's called a letter of explanation. And then Brian, regarding income match, some carriers are reviewing new clients and placing on hold if the income is too low. So in my area, I've never heard of that. And from what I understand, it's one carrier. So personally, I think that's a violation of their privacy health that their insurance companies are taking advantage of. I'm not sure. It's the CSR people. So if you understand, when an insurance company is in the marketplace, they get all that premium tax credit, right? It's kind of a guaranteed, you're going to get your premium. But for the low income, they're responsible for the low deductibles and anything above and beyond that. So now people carriers don't want to pay that. We've got, is it Oscar that's moving out? I mean, we've got these carriers that spread themselves too fast, too thin. They put their prices too low and they've got too big of claims and they're not sure what to do. So some of them are definitely they want to take out those CSRs. And there are people who are manipulating the special enrollment period for the low income. Oh, I'll just put you in at 15,000 and then we'll go in there and update it. And so there might be some carriers who are looking for that. But if my carrier was doing that, if in my state, if I found out my main carrier was doing that, I would advise my clients to not comply. There's nothing in anything with the marketplace, the federal CMS that says they have to tell the insurance company this stuff. They can say, nope, I worked with my broker and it's correct. They don't need to ask for that proof. They can't look at their tax documents from 2 years ago. Nobody has access to those. So I've heard that, and it really makes me angry because I think you're enrolling somebody in the right plan, and then they're just going, oh, we don't like that. We don't like that you put them in that low cost plan. So we're going to put them in a different plan. So, advise your clients to just say, no, I entered the information I needed to. And I think it's scary, right? The person shows up and it sounds like they know it's the carrier's calling the client, but no, that's just seems so inappropriate to me. And I think once CMS gets word of that, I don't think it's going to go so well. And I do think it is only one carrier from what I have been told. So, um, ah, I don't know, Brian, if I'm a genius, but I have done thousands and thousands and thousands of applications. So what you do enough of them, you start to see this stuff. Oh, so yeah, Jill. Yes, having somebody, first of all, if you are getting a brand new person, if they're in 55 or older, and we're talking a couple, always put the oldest person first or the youngest person first. And just say, I know, Bob, you're the one who's usually listed first, but we're going to list Susie first because she's younger. And when you go on Medicare, it will make your life easier. And they go, great. I've never had somebody fight me on that. It makes their life so much easier if the youngest person is listed first, because what will happen is if you've got the primary listed first and he or she goes on Medicare and the secondary person has to stay on, this policy that had two people is completely canceled. They have to start a new policy with the youngest person. Now, I will fight for my clients, and I will call that carrier and make sure that any money used for the deductible max out of pocket moves to the new one. Good companies are just doing it automatically. They know this. It's not the person's fault that the medication or the application makes it a new plan, but they will get the secondary person who's getting a new plan will get a new member number and will have to make a different payment. So they let your client know, all right, I'm taking Bob off. So Susie, turn off your auto pay because it's just going to go into the void for a while. Hold off. We're going to get you a new member number. As soon as you have that, you can update it. If you need prescriptions, get it on the last week of the month so that you got it. So you're not trying to do it on the first, and give it a week or two to get caught up. So yes, some are messier than others, but it's not the client's fault that this happens. It's just the way it is. If the primary person is no longer on the insurance, the secondary person is going to get their own policy. If you already have people, and maybe you didn't know that, Bob wanted to be first and you realize that when you pay it, you're going to have to pay attention when you do the enrollments. So for everybody for 2024, we're going to look at them. If the oldest person is listed first, who's 64, they're going to be coming off in 2024. I will actually flip them that year. The 2024 application, I kind of manipulate and I put the primary person as the youngest and the oldest person secondary for that year so that then I can drop them off or put them in separate plans. If you know one of the two people is coming off, even if they're going to stay with the same carrier and they're going to keep the same plan that they have, put them in separate plans because that will also eliminate that, oops, now the plan for that person went away and we have to start all over. So one of two ways, either start the application or there's a way to do it. And I can't get into it now. That's a little bit later. We'll talk about that during open enrollment. Put them in separate plans. Then they get one of them is going to get a new member number for January, but then when you take the Medicare person off, it doesn't disrupt everything that they're doing. So yeah, Aetna is really not fun. So yep, for Catherine, you asked how am I pushing it out? You just update the application. If you say they're losing coverage at the end of the month, that automatically does it. If you have to pay for Part A, you do not have to have, you can get on the marketplace. So that I talk about that in my class as well. If you're going through the application, there is a spot where there's a little question mark that I don't know if you do this. When you just one time go through the application on Health Sherpa where it's got the little question mark and it pulls up the information, click on it and see. And it specifically says, if you have to pay for Medicare, you don't have to, you can go on the marketplace. Sometimes the VA, sometimes the letters will work for submitting to the marketplace and sometimes it doesn't. So I do understand it's a third party. It is not the government. You cannot call the healthcare.gov and talk to anybody who looks at those documents. The documents come in and it's some third party person. So you can't call and say, where are they? Have they looked at this yet? No. There is something that happens though, when you submit a document and it is incorrect, particularly income, they will call your client. If your client answers the phone, they will tell them what's wrong. They will tell them why they're going to deny it. They'll tell them why they need this. This is partly how I learned some of this because now, of course, nobody answers the phone ever. But in 2013 and 14, we were still answering phones. And so when I would say, oh, if healthcare.gov is calling you, answer the phone and ask them, what am I missing? And then tell me. And so they would tell them, oh, the income you entered was, $1,000 off. You have to write, it needs to be better. So if they do still actually call, they won't leave a message like to call them back. But if your client answers, they'll tell them exactly what is missing, and then you can help them get that in. And when I say push it out, I just go in there and change it. I don't actually change the income. I just say they're losing coverage at the end of the month. And then that gives them 3 more months. So if you just submitted it and it's 2 days before that deadline kicks in, I would just redo the application. You might get the magic question, or it gives it 3 months. Now you can submit that documents and you get you time, and the client's not going to lose their tax credit. So um, if yes, you can get, yeah, reading the question. So yes, Sharon, if you have to pay for part A, you can get the tax credit. You just don't pay for it. Now, if you're paying for it, you have Medicare, you can't get the tax credit because you have Medicare. So, um, and if you put people on two different policies, would they still get the tax credit? Yep. Oh yeah, it just splits it. It kind of, the oldest person will get a little bit more tax credit. You can't quote it that way. And again, this will be closer in August, but I'll show you how to do that. But yes, the tax credit gets applied evenly. So one of the other application questions that requires documentation is proof of citizenship. That's the one that doesn't move out. If they want to know that this person is a legit person, they're here legally, they have a social security number, all that. So if you get the request saying, please send us proof of documentation of your citizenship, you got to get it. That one you can't push out. That one, if you ignore it, they will term the coverage. It's not that the tax credit goes away. Like income ones, the tax credit just goes away. And now they're getting a bill for $1,000 instead of the $300 they were expecting. Proof of citizenship, the coverage disappears. Now, there's 3 reasons, usually the typical 3 reasons why you get that. One, it's a brand new baby. Okay, well, just hold off. Don't try and get birth certificates and documentation. The reason it's asking for that is because you didn't put in a social security number. So I just tell my clients, ooh, I got the baby in, they have coverage. They're going to send you the social security number, get that to me in the next 3 months, or they're going to drop the coverage on the baby. They always get it to me. I still have a reminder. I have a task that pulls up in about 2.5 months that just says, have they given me that social security number? So then you just go into the application, you update it, you the baby's social security number, and it no longer asks for proof of citizenship. That's the other reason. If you have somebody that needs coverage and you don't put a social security number, it's always going to ask for proof of citizenship, always. And if you're married, always put the husband and wife social security, even if the person is not getting coverage. If one person's on Medicare and doesn't need the coverage, but the other spouse does, if you don't put the social security number in there on the spouse who's on Medicare, you're going to get the request for proof of documents because they can't compare. They can't actually see if what you just entered is correct. So always enter spouses' social security numbers. Children, you have to do it if they need the coverage. If they're not getting coverage, you don't have to put the children's social security numbers. But if you have to show somebody who is an immigrant, okay, just get that document. What's interesting is sometimes it will ask that for a spouse who's not getting coverage. Okay, it's a weird glitch. We had somebody, I mean, he's been on Medicare for pretty much she has been my client since 2014. And for 1 year, for some reason, he's on Medicare. It kept asking for his proof of citizenship. Now he's a social security card. He is an immigrant, but they're citizens here. We submitted all the documents and it never went away. The question of send us proof, send us proof. I don't know what happened. I think we submitted it 4 times, but nothing happened. So we just every month we'd go in there, make sure the tax credit wasn't changed, and it wasn't. So we just left it alone. And then the following year, it stopped asking for his proof of citizenship. So sometimes the system is glitchy. It just is. We don't want it to be, because again, we want a smart system that works right, but it's glitchy. So if you have submitted the documents and it's not reading them, particularly with citizenships, and particularly if it's somebody who's not getting coverage, don't stress out too much. Don't worry about it. I don't know, it just goes into the abyss. Or maybe they're looking at millions of documents and that one is pushed at the bottom repeatedly because they don't need to. I don't really know. I do look at it just to make sure. I tell my client, open your premium notice in case it changes. And if it does change, call me immediately, just, to kind of double check. But don't panic. Don't be freaking out, worrying, call the marketplace, because they can't help you. Again, they don't look at those documents, some third party does. So those are usually pretty simple. And then if they've got proof of citizenship, all right, yeah, their green cards, their citizenship cards. Sometimes somebody won't tell you, they've given you a social security number and then they'll say, send us proof of your citizenship. And you're like, oh, and they'll go, oh, sure. Yeah, I've got a green card. Not every immigrant is obvious. So those are pretty easy and simple to upload. Native American, that's another one. If somebody says they're Native American, you have to enter their tribal number and you have to pick the tribe that they're associated with. Ironically, the list is extremely long and not listed in alphabetical, but and then you just submit their tribal card to show that they actually are part of a tribe. And that one you have to do every single year. I have a guy, every year I have to update it. So I just have a scanned copy. It's in my CRM every year. When I put him in, I just upload it for him. So some of those weird ones that you just have to upload every year. I've had immigrants I've had to upload every single year. I'm like, their citizenship didn't change. They're not here on a temporary visa. They are legal citizens. They live here, and I'd still have to upload it. So I always keep those documentations in our CRM so that I don't have to ask them every time. I keep it, I upload it. Sometimes you have to upload the exact same document. I had a person who uploaded, we put in exactly what his pay was that matched his pay stub. We uploaded the pay stub. It says, send us more proof of documentation, more proof. And I'm like, more proof? What more is it? I literally just re-uploaded the exact same one and it went through. So it doesn't always make sense. If remember the phrase KISS, keep it simple, because let me tell you, I don't know who those people are, but they're getting so much work that I think sometimes they nitty gritty. Oh, this is off by $10. I need more proof. The CRM I use is Agency Block. It's a pretty complicated one. If it's just you and you want something simple, there are lots of CRMs I've heard of. We've used RedTel in the past, which is pretty simplistic. It's only $100 and you can have lots of people on it. I liked that one. And there's Smart Office, which I also like. I know there's other people, less annoying one is out there. So definitely, if you do not have a CRM, get one. It's going to keep your stuff secure. It's not on your computer. It's somebody else's problem to keep it secure. And that's what they do. If you're still in the Excel spreadsheet, get yourself a CRM. And like I said, RedTel is only $100 a month and it's perfectly acceptable CRM. All right, I'm going to show you a couple little things before we head off. I know we're already past. I just wanted to show you this I found on cms.gov. It's a resource for agents and brokers in the health insurance marketplace. If you scroll down to the bottom, it's got some Medicaid unwinding. They have webinars that you can see, timelines. So they do have some stuff. I was actually like, oh, I didn't realize this was here. And they have presentations. You can download all of those. It's pretty easy to get some extra stuff. So I just put that in the chat for everybody, the link. I was actually surprised at how much stuff they have. They even have, if you want, they've even got marketing things that you can use and stuff like that. I'm going to show you my income document. So we use one, it's called the letter of explanation. That one is when somebody does not have documents. They don't have anything that shows what they actually make. It's the letter of document, or yeah, letter. See, I can't find it now. Letter of explanation. So you're explaining to the marketplace and whoever's looking at those things why you don't have documents. Well, if somebody just retired, they haven't even gotten their Social Security yet. Of course not, right? So the letter of explanation is a very detailed way of saying, this is what it is. This is what we're making. This is how it looks like for this person. So I will send you a generic one so that you can use it. I've been using it for years. It never fails. To whom it may concern. Put the date regarding the income for application number, put the number in there, put their name and say, I will make. Enter exactly what you put on the application. If you said they're making 33,772 cents, I don't put that. Make it match exactly, and then say where the source is, exactly like what you put on the application, from their IRA, from their job, whatever it is that you're saying, self-employed. And then repeat that for all sources of income. If they're making $5 for interest, say, and they're going to make $5 for interest, enter it exactly. Heck, I've even copied and pasted exactly what's on the application and put it in here. And then do that for everybody. Bob is going to make blah, blah, blah. Susie's going to make blah, blah, blah. And John, their 22-year-old, is not going to make any income. I started seeing that when I didn't, it'll say, well, send us what the 20-year-olds make it. I'm like, they're not making anything. So just on the letter, make it very simple. I'm making this, she's making this person's making nothing. Our total income will be, match it 100% with what you put on the application. If you have any questions, contact, type their name, their phone number. That's it. You submit that, it's accepted 99.9% of the time. And now that we put in the person who isn't making any income, it's accepted 100%. So it's a really easy letter of explanation. You're explaining to them, here's the income I listed. Yes, I understand this is how I listed it. That's it. And they go, all right, perfect. I will do a letter of explanation if I can only get partial. They have their retirement. Maybe they have the pay stub because they retired halfway through the year and you have that end of the year pay stub. And then I say, and for the rest of the year, this is what they're going to make. So the letter of explanation is brilliant. Tell your client you're doing it. Ask for permission to do it. Because why not? There's no reason not to enter permission, right? Ask them permission to do it. So it will also be on the email that I send out with the recording for this. If you have on the kid, do you still put the income if they don't file a tax return? If you don't have it on the application, don't put it on there. And remember, children making less than 12,000, don't even enter the income. It will calculate it and it takes it out anyway. So if they're making less than 12,000, don't even put it on the application. So if it's not on the application, don't put it on this letter. That's it. We went over. Apologize. I will send out the recording soon. Send me back an email if you have questions. Thank you very much, guys. I'm really just honored that there's this many people on, and I appreciate your support. And if I can help any of you, let me know. Have a great rest of the day.